Welcome to today's devotional message from Trusting God Always. You prayed, you fasted, you waited, and still silence. Maybe this message is the sign you didn't know you needed. If these words meet you right where you are, like, share, and subscribe. Help us reach more souls who need God's comfort and truth. Comment below with your favorite Bible promise, or the one you're still holding on to in the waiting. Let's begin, and let His Word breathe new life into yours. You sit by the window, the morning light slicing through the panes, feeling less like a gentle dawn and more like a spotlight on your unanswered prayers. The coffee has gone cold in your mug, a mirror, perhaps, of the hope that feels like it's chilled in your heart. You trace the condensation on the glass, fingers following silent paths that mirror the labyrinth of your thoughts. You remember the promises you stood on with such fervent faith, the bold declarations you made, the breakthrough you prayed for with every fiber of your being. Yet here you are, still in the waiting room of life, watching the clock tick, feeling time move on without you. The silence from heaven feels heavy. It presses down, almost deafening in its quietness. You look around and see others. Their doors are opening, their prayers are being answered, their seasons are clearly changing, marked by visible progress and tangible blessings. And you feel frozen in time, still standing still, retracing the same steps you took yesterday, the day before, weeks, maybe months ago. You find yourself whispering the same questions into the quiet air. God, are you there? Do you see me? Have you forgotten me in this stillness? This is where the enemy loves to work, doesn't he? He takes the quietness of God and amplifies it, twisting the divine pause into what feels like proof of His absence, or worse, His indifference to your plight. He whispers doubts that cling to your soul like shadows in the low light. Maybe you didn't have enough faith for this. Maybe you misunderstood what God promised you. Maybe He simply doesn't care about this specific thing that matters so much to you. These whispers are insidious, designed to isolate you in your struggle, to make you question everything you thought was true about God and yourself. But hear this truth, dear one. This feeling, this raw, vulnerable place of anxious waiting and heavy silence isn't a sign of your failure or God's neglect. It is a common, deeply human, and often profound part of the faith journey. You are not walking this path alone. Even the great psalmist, David, cried out from a place of deep distress, echoing your very question. How long, Lord? Will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? Psalm 13:1. He felt unseen, unheard, wrestling in the very space you find yourself today. You are in good company in this tension between believing what God has said and seeing it manifest in your reality. This moment, this silence, this questioning, it is not the end of your story. It is often, surprisingly, the beginning of a deeper, more profound encounter with the God who works in ways we cannot yet perceive, in seasons we don't yet understand. He is the God who forms diamonds under pressure, who carves canyons with unseen water, who builds faith in the quiet, hidden places. If you feel unseen, unheard, and stuck in the silence today, wrestling with doubts in the waiting, this message is profoundly for you. It is a gentle reminder that even when you hear nothing, God is speaking. Even when you see nothing, He is working. Even when you feel forgotten, you are held, intricately, fiercely, lovingly held in His capable hands. The unseen work is often the most foundational. He is preparing something, perhaps in you, perhaps for you, perhaps both. Trust the quiet architect of your soul. The ground feels hard, unyielding. You planted the seed of your deepest prayer, watered it with tears and hope, maybe even fasted over the soil. But days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and still nothing breaks the surface. Just the same flat earth, silent and still. It's the gardener's ache, the quiet desperation of watching and waiting when there's no visible sign of life. You wonder if the seed was viable, if the soil was wrong, if your efforts were futile. Maybe, just maybe, God didn't hear or didn't care enough to answer. This is the landscape of waiting on God, a season many try to rush through, overlooking its sacred, hidden purpose. The world teaches us instant results, visible progress, immediate gratification. But the kingdom often works in slow, unseen increments. Just like that seed buried deep, invisible to the casual observer, God is doing His most crucial work in the darkness beneath the surface of your life. He is not simply delaying the answer you seek. He is actively developing you. Think of roots pushing down through stubborn earth, anchoring the future tree against unseen storms. They twist, they search, they build a foundation in places sunlight never touches. This is what God is doing in your wait. He's deepening your roots of character, making them resilient. He's strengthening your faith, not just in the promise, but in the promiser Himself. He's teaching you endurance, the quiet power to stand firm when the world shifts around you. He's aligning your restless heart, refining desires, revealing hidden idols that might crumble the very blessing you long for if it arrived prematurely. The Apostle Paul understood this divine process. He didn't sugarcoat suffering or delay. He declared, "Suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope." Romans 5:3-4. The waiting period, often felt as a form of suffering, the suffering of unanswered prayers, the suffering of uncertainty, the suffering of feeling stuck, is the very crucible where these spiritual muscles are forged. It's the furnace that purifies motives, burning away dross, preparing you not just for the breakthrough, but to handle the breakthrough when it comes. The blessing is not the end goal. Becoming more like Christ is. The waiting is a holy space where He does that transforming work from the inside out. Perhaps you feel unproductive, stagnant, like life is on pause. Yet, this seeming emptiness is where God establishes depth. This period of perceived idleness is where He is most actively cultivating your inner landscape. The delay you lament might be the divine development you desperately need. You might be begging for escape from the wilderness, unaware that God is using the stark landscape to reveal what truly sustains you, not the comforts you crave, but His very presence. What hidden roots might God be strengthening in you right now while you see no sprout above ground? What character is He forging in this quiet furnace of your wait? What false idols is He revealing in the stillness? Trust the process below the surface. Trust the unseen work. The outward growth will come, not necessarily on your timeline, but perfectly in its season. And you, rooted deeper, refined stronger, will be ready to receive and steward what God has prepared. Surrender the need to see. Embrace the call to simply trust that He is working, powerfully and precisely, even when it's hidden from your sight. You've been through the fire, haven't you? Walked through the deep waters, felt the ground shake beneath your feet. You stand in the ashes of what was, or perhaps just endure the endless, wearying grind of what is. The questions used to be about timing. When will this end? When will relief come? But now, the questions burn differently, deeper. Are you even here, God? It's a raw, honest ache that whispers in the quiet moments and shouts in the darkest hours. The chronic illness persists, a relentless companion, despite every prayer prayed, every healer sought. The rift in a vital relationship widens daily, a chasm you fear can never be bridged. The financial pressure is a constant vise, squeezing hope dry, no matter how hard you work, how faithfully you budget. You look out at the tempest tearing through your life, feel the sting of the rain and the bite of the wind, and the sheer magnitude of the struggle makes God feel impossibly distant. 1,000,000 miles away, perhaps more. You are the disciples in the boat on the stormy sea, aren't you? Mark 4:35-41. The waves are no longer just splashing. They're crashing over the sides, threatening to swallow the vessel whole. Panic rises, cold and sharp. And there, in the stern, seemingly oblivious to the chaos, is Jesus, asleep. Their desperate cry cuts through the roar of the storm. "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" It's your cry, isn't it? The gut-wrenching plea from a heart convinced it's about to drown, while the one who could save seems dormant, detached, absent. But Jesus was in the boat. His presence wasn't defined by the calm of the waters, nor by his immediate, dramatic intervention at that precise moment. His presence was quiet, resting, but undeniably there. He was present in the storm, not waiting for it to pass. And he is present in yours. The profound spiritual insight here is that God's presence is not always announced by trumpets or blinding light. Sometimes it is the quiet strength that mysteriously prevents you from collapsing altogether. Perhaps it's the small, persistent flicker of hope that refuses to be extinguished in the suffocating darkness. Maybe it's the unexpected comfort from a friend who just shows up when you needed them most. It could be something as simple, as fundamental, as the breath filling your lungs each morning. Another day granted against all odds. Even when you can't feel him near, even when the silence feels deafening, he is there, closer than your next breath, resting in the storm with you, ready to command peace when the time is right. He is most present when he feels most absent. Acknowledge the pain, yes. Voice the question honestly, but also ask God to open your eyes to the subtle, powerful, often hidden ways he is profoundly present with you now, holding you steady beneath the waves. You scroll again, thumb moving almost involuntarily. Another engagement photo, another new baby announcement. A friend just closed on their dream home. Someone else landed that impossible job. A healing testimony floods your feed. And there you are. Your life feels frozen, a still frame in a world of motion pictures. You prayed, you believed, you waited. Yet, nothing. The screen glows, a cruel mirror reflecting what you don't have, amplifying the silence where your answer should be. This is the biting edge of the comparison trap, especially sharp in the season of waiting. It's a thief of joy, subtle at first, then overwhelming. It whispers the corrosive questions. What's wrong with you? Why them and not me? Am I not good enough? Is God playing favorites? You feel like the forgotten child at the feast, watching everyone else receive dessert, while you're still expected to finish your vegetables, plate untouched. It breeds a bitter soil of discontentment, watering seeds of frustration, and sometimes even a quiet resentment towards God or the very people you should be celebrating with. This isn't a new struggle unique to the digital age. The ache echoes through time. Think of Leah and Rachel in the Genesis narrative, Genesis 29-30, bound by shared love for one man, yet trapped in a painful comparison over children and affection, their hearts aching for what the other possessed, their waiting seasons fraught with spiritual and emotional turmoil. But here is the profound spiritual truth, often hidden in the shadow of comparison. Your journey is not a mass-produced path. It is uniquely yours, handcrafted by a God who does not merely see the beginning, but holds the end. He possesses a specific plan and a precise timeline woven intricately for you. Your waiting season, the quiet stillness where you feel stuck, is not a punishment or a sign of His disapproval. It is a customized preparation, a divine cultivation happening beneath the surface, unseen by the scrolling world. Sometimes, God's greatest work happens in the moments you feel the most overlooked. Galatians 6:4 offers a gentle yet firm redirect. But let each one test his own work, and then his reason to boast will be in himself alone and not in his neighbor. Focus your gaze inward. Tend your own garden. What growth is happening in the quiet earth of your soul? What is God speaking in your stillness? Celebrate with genuine joy for others' breakthroughs, but resolutely refuse to let their blessing become a mirror for your perceived lack. Your time is coming, yes, but it will arrive precisely when you need it most, for the very purpose God intends. Refocus your vision from their path, brilliant and clear on the screen, back onto the path God has laid out for you, step by step, right now. Trust that the hand guiding your unique journey is the same hand that directs the stars, and it is infallibly good. The dust coated his sandals, thick and ancient, just like the questions settling in his soul. He had walked away from everything, from from comfort, from what made sense, because a voice had called him. A promise had been whispered, a land unseen, a future unimaginable, descendants like the stars in the night sky. Abraham, a nomad led by pure, audacious faith. But years melted into decades. The youthful strength faded, replaced by the weariness of age. He looked at Sarah, the beloved one beside him, her face etched with patience and perhaps a silent, shared ache. The promise of a son, the foundation of that multitude, seemed not just distant, but cruel in its impossibility. You know this kind of waiting, don't you? The kind that stretches past reason, past hope, settling in the barren places of your own life. The job that hasn't opened, the healing that hasn't come, the relationship that remains broken, the dream that seems too old to possibly be realized. Like Abraham and Sarah, you've watched time march on, and the natural signs scream impossible. The womb is too old, the door is closed, the resources are gone, the strength has failed. It's in this space, this prolonged wilderness of waiting, that faith feels less like a soaring eagle and more like a stumbling camel. The temptation arises, just as it did for them, to help God out, to take matters into your own hands, forcing a solution, creating a pathway where God seemed to have left none. The story of Hagar is a somber reminder that our hurried interventions, born of doubt or impatience, can create tangled knots that take generations to unravel. It's a paradox. In trying to speed up God, we often slow down the true fulfillment of His perfect plan. But the deeper spiritual insight from Abraham's journey isn't just about waiting. It's about how he waited and what he believed. It wasn't just believing that God could give him a son, a logical deduction about divine power. It was believing God would, just as He promised, in His way, in His time, even when every human circumstance mocked the promise. Romans 4:18-21 captures this essence. Against all hope, Abraham in hope believed. He did not waver through unbelief, being fully persuaded that God had power to do what He had promised. His faith wasn't blind optimism. It was a profound trust in the character of the promiser, even when the path to fulfillment was utterly invisible. He wrestled with doubt, yes, showing us it's okay to be human, but his prevailing posture was one of profound reliance. His story challenges you right now. Are you willing to hold on to the promises God has spoken over your life, even when the natural realm shouts no? Are you willing to surrender your hurried timelines, your helpful schemes, and trust in His unfolding? This isn't about passive resignation. It's about active trust. It's about tending the soil of your heart in the waiting, staying connected to the source of life, believing that God is faithful to complete what He has begun. No matter how long the night or how impossible the dawn appears, take courage from Abraham, the father of faith, who learned that true strength isn't found in forcing open doors, but in trusting the one who holds the keys to unlock impossibilities in His perfect season. You feel the pressure rising, not just external circumstances, but an internal heat, a slow burn of impatience, frustration, and a gnawing sense that you're not progressing. You sit in the silence, surrounded by the walls of your waiting season, and it feels less like a holding pattern and more like a forge. This is often the crucible, the ancient container designed to withstand intense heat, where God refines the truest metal of your character. Like gold plunged into fire, you feel the heat, the discomfort, the very core of you being tested. Think of the refiner, eyes sharp, watching the molten gold. The heat doesn't destroy the gold. It's necessary to bring the impurities, the dross, to the surface. And God, our divine refiner, watches you just as intently. He sees the pressure you're under, the waiting that stretches out, and He uses that very heat to reveal the things in you that are not Him. It's the pride that insists you could handle this on your own. It's the self-reliance that makes you white-knuckle control until your knuckles are raw. It's the impatience that chafes against His timing, the tendency to complain when you'd rather praise, the subtle lack of gratitude for the unseen work He is doing. These are the dross rising to the surface, and with a gentle, sometimes painful precision, He begins to skim them away. This isn't judgment, it's purification. It's not punishment, it's preparation. It's the painstaking, loving process of making you more like Christ, whose own perfect character was forged not in ease, but through the furnace of suffering and perfect obedience. Hebrews 5:8. The paradox is stark. The very discomfort you long to escape is actively working for you. The weight that feels like a void is, in God's hands, a powerful, generative space. It's in this fire that resilience is hardened, humility is softened, patience is lengthened, and your dependence shifts from your own flickering strength to His unwavering power. The spiritual insight is profound. The character being produced in this crucible is the very foundation of a hope that will not disappoint. Romans 5:4-5. Not a flimsy wish, but a robust, tested hope, anchored in the faithfulness of the refiner himself. He sees his reflection in the pure gold. He sees the image of his Son being formed in you. The waiting isn't wasted moments. It's holy moments of transformation. It feels like breaking, yet it is actually making. What aspects of your character is the fire of this season revealing? What is God bringing to the surface to be skimmed away? Lean into the heat, knowing the refiner never takes his eyes off you. Trust the process, for He is perfecting you into His image, preparing you for the purpose He has set before you. The crucible isn't the end. It's the powerful, necessary path to becoming truly free and radiantly pure. You sit in the quiet, feeling the weight of doors that refuse to open. Years stretch out before you, marked not by progress, but by the slow, grinding monotony of the same walls, the same unanswered questions. You've prayed, you've hoped, you've even seen glimpses, prophetic whispers of a future that feels impossibly distant from your present confinement. Like Joseph, you had a dream, a vision planted deep within your soul, but the reality is a suffocating pit, a forgotten prison cell. Imagine him there, the sunless air of the cistern, then the stark stone of the Egyptian prison. Every morning, the same low ceiling, the same taste of yesterday's despair, betrayal by his own flesh and blood, false accusations stealing his reputation, promises from men etched on sand and washed away by the tide of indifference. The cupbearer, eyes wide with gratitude for the interpreted dream, swearing remembrance, only to vanish into the palace corridors, leaving Joseph for 2 long years more in that silent space. Genesis 40:23. 2 more years of waking up and realizing the key wasn't turned. Did doubt whisper venomous questions in the dark? Did he wonder if the dreams of sheaves bowing down, of stars and sun worshiping him, were just cruel mirages? Yes, he must have. To be forgotten after hoping for release is perhaps the deepest cut of all. The spiritual insight settles heavy, then lightens. God permits the deepest pits not to punish, but to prepare. The years in the prison weren't delays. They were divine schooling. In the crucible of waiting, Joseph wasn't just enduring. He was learning humility under the weight of injustice, perseverance through forgotten days, wisdom in navigating complex human hearts, and administrative skills managing a prison population. His character wasn't refined in comfort. It was forged in the fire of affliction. What looks like a dead end to your limited sight might be the very path God is using to hollow out space for His largest blessings. The darkness of the pit prepared him for the glaring light of the palace. His imprisonment was the strange, necessary step towards saving entire nations from starvation. Genesis 50:20. Are you willing to trust that God is working, meticulously weaving your future even in your current pit or prison season? Look closer. What lessons are being etched into your soul? What unexpected connections are being made in the place of waiting? Your present confinement, however long or painful, cannot negate the future promise God has spoken over you. Trust that even when you feel forgotten, you are being strategically positioned. You feel the weight of the pause. The future you've prayed for hasn't arrived. The situation hasn't changed. And the world tells you that waiting means sitting still, doing nothing, just enduring the emptiness until God finally decides to move. You sit in the silence, perhaps folding your hands, wondering if this prolonged stillness is what waiting on God truly means. Passive, powerless, holding your breath until a divine intervention drops from the sky. But the scriptures paint a different picture entirely. Biblical waiting is rarely passive idleness. It is an active posture of faith, obedience, and diligent preparation, while you wait for God's specific breakthrough or direction. Consider Noah. Did he sit by the shore, idly wishing for rain? No, he picked up his tools. He felled trees, sawed planks, hammered nails. He built an ark, a massive, impossible structure, while waiting for a flood the world couldn't even imagine. His waiting was action. Think of the disciples after Jesus ascended. They weren't just lounging around, hoping for the best. They gathered together. They prayed, they worshiped, they strengthened one another in community, actively waiting for the promised Holy Spirit. Acts 1. Their waiting was devoted anticipation and corporate obedience. Look at the farmer in the field, James 5:7. He doesn't plant a seed and then go take a decade-long nap. He plants, he waters, he weeds, he tends the soil, he protects the vulnerable shoots, actively stewarding the ground while he waits for the harvest God alone can bring. Your waiting season is not empty space, it is fertile ground. It is a sacred opportunity for growth, for service, for faithful stewardship right where you are. What has God already placed in your hands? What relationships can you pour into? What truth can you meditate on today? What skills has He given you to develop in this present moment? Active waiting is about being utterly faithful in the now, trusting with every fiber of your being that your obedience today is not wasted time, but is intrinsically woven into God's unfolding plan for your tomorrow. It's a gentle paradox. The most faithful waiting is often the most vigorous work of building, tending, praying, and loving right where you stand. Psalm 27:14 doesn't just say, "Wait for the Lord." It calls out, "Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord." That strength, that courage of heart isn't something you muster on your own before you can wait. It's cultivated in the active waiting itself. It comes from fixing your eyes on the one you are waiting on, not just the outcome you are waiting for. It comes from worshiping Him in the midst of uncertainty, from tending the garden He's given you today, even if the harvest seems far off. Don't just wait for God to do something. Wait on Him by faithfully living in His presence, actively stewarding the life He's given you. Right now, the quiet frustration hums beneath the surface of your days. The season you find yourself in wasn't on the itinerary. It feels like lack, a waiting room where the appointment is perpetually delayed. You see the abundance elsewhere, the answered prayers others celebrate, and the green grass on every side but yours. A subtle anxiety wraps around you, tightening its grip, whispering questions about God's timing, His plan, perhaps even His presence. You yearn for change, for movement, for the next chapter to finally begin. Yet, in the echoing silence of this season, a deeper truth waits to be discovered. A secret whispered not in times of plenty, but in times of pressing need. Consider the Apostle Paul, a man whose life was a turbulent sea, shipwrecks, beatings, imprisonment, hunger, thirst, slander, and glorious triumphs. He knew lack intimately, knew abundance too, and from the depths of his experience, anchored not by circumstances, but by something far greater, he penned these revolutionary words: "I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. I can do all things through him who strengthens me." Philippians 4:11-13. This isn't a passive resignation, a shrug of defeat saying, "Well, guess I'm stuck." No, this is a profound, active learning. Contentment isn't the absence of a desire for what's next or a hope for change. It's a revolutionary peace that says, regardless of my external reality, my internal security rests entirely in Christ. It's finding joy not in the fulfilled desire, but in the sufficient God. It's the paradox of finding fullness in the very season that feels empty, strength in the space that feels weak. God often uses these seasons of waiting, these moments of lack, like a gentle hand weaning us off our dependence on earthly comforts, on achievements, on having the right circumstances, and drawing us into the stark, beautiful truth that He is our truest, deepest source of satisfaction. This learned contentment is a powerful weapon against the fear of missing out, against the gnawing anxiety that whispers, "What if it never changes?" It frees you from the tyranny of the when, the idea that joy, peace, or life itself can only begin when things are different. You are not waiting to be content. You are learning to be content in the waiting. Your present season, no matter how challenging, is the classroom where this divine secret is revealed. It is here, stripped of external props, that you can discover God Himself is enough. His presence isn't just a treasure. It is your greatest treasure. Take a quiet moment, breathe in the air of this truth, and perhaps whisper this prayer: "Lord, teach me. Teach me the secret Paul learned. Teach me to find my complete satisfaction, my true security, my deepest peace, not in what I have or don't have, but entirely, wholly in you." The world around you hums with urgency. Notifications ping, deliveries arrive in hours, not days. Answers to ancient questions are just a search query away. Your internal clock, honed by this pace, ticks impatiently, demanding results, demanding now. You carry burdens that feel too heavy for another moment, desires that burn with immediate need, prayers whispered with a fervent hope for rapid response. And so, you kneel, or you pace, or you simply sit in the quiet frustration of the waiting. You laid your heart bare before the divine, pouring out your anxieties, your hopes, your desperate requests. You waited. You checked the calendar. Days bled into weeks, weeks into months. The silence isn't just empty. It feels like a negative space, a void where an answer should be. Doubt, like a creeping vine, begins to wrap around your heart. Did God hear? Did He misunderstand? Does He simply not care enough to move with the speed I need? You start to assume something is terribly wrong with the prayer, with you, with God Himself. Your urgent clock clashes painfully, dissonantly, with a timeline you cannot perceive. But lift your gaze, just for a moment, above the frantic ticking of your own watch. Imagine a perspective that spans not just years, but millennia. A perspective that sees the ripple effect of every single decision, not just the ones you make today, but the choices of generations past and those yet to come. God's timeline isn't dictated by your discomfort or the world's demand for instant gratification. His timing is woven into the very fabric of creation. a tapestry where countless threads must align perfectly for the masterpiece to unfold. He sees the readiness of hearts you don't even know exist yet, the intricate dance of circumstances you couldn't possibly orchestrate. This is the profound, sometimes painful truth reflected in Isaiah 55, 8-9. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts your thoughts. Your impatience is a natural, human response, born from a limited vista. You stand in the valley, perhaps seeing only the immediate rocks and trees, desperate for the summit, while God stands above the clouds, seeing the entire mountain range, the coming storm, the hidden path, the perfect moment when the sunrise will break over the peak in breathtaking glory. He is preparing you for the answer, just as much as He is preparing the answer for you. His timing isn't just the right time, in a technical sense. It is the best time. It is the moment, designed to bring Him the most glory, yes, but also to work the deepest, most comprehensive good in your life and in the lives of everyone connected to your story. The delay might be forging a resilience you will desperately need later. The unanswered prayer might be protecting you from a path that looks good now but leads to ruin. The waiting is not an absence of God's work, but often the quietest, most complex phase of it. Think of the seed buried in the earth, unseen, inert, seemingly delayed. Yet it is precisely in that hidden, patient waiting that the miracle of growth begins. Trusting His timing requires a defiant surrender of your own urgent clock. It means acknowledging that your perspective, however valid your pain feels, is infinitesimally small compared to His cosmic view. It's a quiet act of faith that declares, "My wisdom is limited, Lord, but yours is infinite. I will let go of my demand for now and trust your perfect when." This surrender is a gentle paradox. In letting go of control, you step into the truest form of peace. You might feel like you are standing still in the waiting, but perhaps God is moving mountains just beyond your sight, aligning stars for your arrival. He is never late. He is simply operating on a divine schedule designed for maximum impact, ultimate good, and the unfolding of a story far grander than you could write for yourself. When anxiety whispers that time is running out, remember His perspective stretches into eternity. Surrender your clock to His cosmic timekeeping. It is in that quiet surrender that you find rest, and it is in His perfect time that His promises find their most glorious fulfillment. The silence stretches, heavy with unspoken questions. You sent the urgent message, didn't you? The one whispered in the quiet hours, written on tear-stained pages, cried out on bent knees. "Lord, he whom you love is ill." Or perhaps, "Lord, this situation I love is dying." You waited, heartbeats synced with the ticking clock, expecting the swift, miraculous intervention. After all, He had done it for others. You've seen the testimonies, heard the stories of instant healing. Sudden provision, unexpected rescue. Why not now? Why not for you? Think of Bethany, a village bathed in the warm glow of expectation. Mary and Martha, sisters devoted to Jesus, watching their beloved brother Lazarus weaken. They knew Jesus loved him. The message wasn't just a report. It was an invitation, a plea, an expectation of immediate action. Surely, they thought, He will drop everything and come running. He was their friend, their hope, their Lord. The storm was gathering, and they called out for the one who could command the waves. They expected him to walk on their troubled waters immediately. But Jesus didn't rush. The scripture in John chapter 11 tells us when he heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 more days where he was. 2 more days. In the economy of human suffering and urgent need, 2 days can feel like an eternity. 2 days when every moment counts, when life hangs precariously in the balance. 2 days of watching hope flicker and fade. The sisters undoubtedly continued to pray, continued to expect. With every passing hour, the knot in their stomachs must have tightened, confusion mingling with fear. Does he not care? Did the message not reach him? Is he not able? Their expectation of immediate intervention clashed violently with the stark reality of divine delay. By the time Jesus finally arrived in Bethany, the worst had happened. Lazarus was dead, not just gone, but buried. 4 days had passed. In that culture, 4 days signified absolute finality. The spirit was believed to have left the body permanently after 3 days. Lazarus was undeniably, irrevocably dead. The village mourned. The sisters' grief was a tangible weight in the air. And with the grief came the pain of disappointment, the sting of unmet expectation. Martha, ever practical and direct, voiced the raw, aching question echoing in both their hearts. Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. It wasn't just sorrow. It was a gentle, heartbreaking accusation, a lament born of love and shattered hope. The wilderness felt closer than the promised land. Their words pierce the heart, don't they? Because they are our words. How many times have we stood beside the tomb of a hope, a dream, a relationship, a career, whispering through tears, Lord, if you had been here, if you had intervened sooner, if you hadn't waited. The silence from heaven feels like abandonment. The delay feels like denial. We see the problem getting worse, the situation becoming more dire, the 4-day finality setting in, and we cannot fathom the divine logic. We expected a 1-day fix for a 1-day problem, perhaps a 2-day fix for a 2-day problem at most. But 4 days? 4 days of death? It feels cruel. It feels like the oil in the lamp has completely run out. The mustard seed has shriveled before it could even sprout. Yet, the profound, almost paradoxical spiritual insight here is this: Jesus had a purpose in the delay. His waiting was not passive inaction. It was active, strategic timing. He didn't rush, not because he didn't care, but because he was setting the stage for a miracle that would be utterly undeniable. A resurrection after 4 days in the tomb transcends any natural explanation. It couldn't be mistaken for a mere recovery, a misdiagnosis, or a timely arrival. It was resurrection, pure and simple, a stark confrontation with death itself, and a powerful demonstration of his authority over death. The delay ensured that the glory revealed would be immense, pointing irrevocably back to God. It was also meant to deepen the disciples' faith, to reveal Jesus not just as a healer, but as the resurrection and the life. The waiting period, though filled with agony, confusion, and the bitter taste of loss for Mary and Martha, was absolutely essential for God's larger, more magnificent plan to unfold. The deepest valleys often precede the highest mountain views. Consider your own 4-day problems, the crisis that seems to be worsening, The prayer that seems to go unanswered day after day. The situation that feels utterly dead and buried. God sometimes allows the difficulty to escalate, delays his intervention, not because he is indifferent, but because he has a greater purpose in mind. He might be preparing a bigger testimony, one that silences all doubt and magnifies his power in ways a quicker fix never could. He might be revealing a deeper truth about himself, his sovereignty, his patience, his perfect timing, his resurrection power that works even when all hope seems lost. He might be positioning you for a more profound experience of his power, an encounter with the resurrection and the life that transforms your understanding of faith. Your current difficulty, your painful delay, is not a sign of God's inability or neglect. It might just be the setup for a greater demonstration of his glory. The waiting is part of the work. Can you trust that God might have a 4-day purpose in your 1-day problem? That sometimes the darkest night is merely the canvas for his most brilliant dawn. It is in the feeling of utter helplessness that we learn the magnitude of his strength. You sit in the quiet ache of waiting. The world rushes past your window, a blur of movement and progress, while you feel anchored in place, perhaps even drifting backward. This season, this stillness, it wasn't what you planned. It feels less like a pause and more like a sideline, maybe even a demotion from where you thought you should be. The skills you honed seem irrelevant here. The dreams you held feel distant, gathering dust in the corner of your heart. From a human perspective, it feels like a detour, a waste of potential, a season God somehow forgot about, or perhaps just isn't using. But sometimes, this waiting period isn't just about refining your character in the fire. It's about a hidden, behind-the-scenes preparation. It's God getting you ready, not just for the blessing or the platform, but for the weighty responsibility that comes with it. Think of Moses, a prince trained in the palaces of Egypt, destined for leadership, perhaps even the throne. Then, in a moment of impulsive justice, he flees. 40 long years he spends in the wilderness, not ruling nations, but herding sheep. 40 years of silence, isolation, tending to the mundane. From the eyes of the world, it was a staggering demotion. A prince became a shepherd in exile. It looked like the ultimate detour, potential utterly wasted in the dust and heat of obscurity. Yet in that wilderness, away from the clamor of court and the distractions of power, God was shaping him. He was learning humility, not from books, but from quiet dependence on a shepherd's meager resources. He was learning patience, not from strategic planning sessions, but from the slow rhythm of tending flocks. He was learning reliance on God, not in grand pronouncements, but in the daily vulnerability of wilderness life. And he was acquiring the very skills he would need, not just leadership, but the intimate knowledge of that very same wilderness he would later lead millions of stubborn, complaining people through. He wasn't simply waiting for his calling. He was being profoundly, divinely prepared for it. The spiritual insight echoes through the centuries. God never wastes a season. Never. Your waiting time is so often a crucial season of equipping, of quiet learning, of essential growth that is absolutely necessary for what comes next. You might be acquiring skills you don't see the use for yet, gaining wisdom you haven't applied, developing an empathy you didn't know you needed, or building connections that feel insignificant now but will be crucial later. These are the hidden preparations, You might feel stagnant, but like roots deepening unseen beneath the soil, you are being fortified. Jeremiah 29, verse 11 isn't just a promise of a future hope. It's a promise that God knows the plans that often require a season or even seasons of behind-the-scenes preparation. Perhaps the greatest progress is made when you feel completely still. This hidden season isn't a pause before His plan. It is part of His strategic plan for your future and your hope. What skills are you gaining in this stillness? What lessons are being etched onto your soul in this isolation? Look for the quiet equipping, the unseen growth. Trust that even when the stage is dark and the audience is absent, the author of your story is working, preparing you for the moment the curtain rises. This season, felt as a detour, is in fact a sacred, essential part of your journey to the promised land He has for you. Lean into the hidden preparation. Trust that He knows what He's doing. The silence stretches. The days bleed into weeks, the weeks into months. You've prayed the same prayer until the words feel thin, like worn pages in a beloved book. And the answer? It seems lost somewhere in the vast, indifferent sky. This waiting, it begins to wear on you. Doubt, like a tiny seed, finds fertile ground in the dry ache of delay. And whispers start, subtle, insidious suggestions that maybe, just maybe, God needs a little help. This is the ancient whisper that found Sarah under the desert stars, watching her life unfold without the promised child. God had spoken it to Abraham, a son, a lineage more numerous than those very stars. Years became decades. Her womb remained silent. The promise felt distant, a mirage shimmering on the horizon of impossible hope. Impatience, born of deep longing and fading strength, took root. Sarah, perhaps with a heavy heart, perhaps with a desperate practicality, looked at the servant Hagar and saw a solution. A way to make the promise happen now, a way to give God a hand. They acted on their own timeline. Abraham listened. Hagar conceived. Ishmael was born, not of the divine promise directly through Sarah, but through human means, born of impatience and a perceived need to force God's plan into being. The immediate result? Division, tension, jealousy, and conflict rippling through their household. A wound opened that would take generations to even begin to mend. Their attempt to help God bypass the difficult weight created complications they couldn't foresee or control. This story echoes through time, landing in your own life. You get tired of waiting for the right door to open, so you push one open that God never intended, taking a compromising path because it's a path. You yearn for companionship, tired of the quiet ache of loneliness, and settle for a relationship that dims your spirit rather than reflecting His light, convincing yourself it's better than waiting. You face financial pressure, the mountain of bills looming, and consider shortcuts, questionable practices, anything to alleviate the burden now, rather than trusting the shepherd to lead you to still waters in His time. You try to construct the bridge across the valley yourself, instead of trusting the one who parts seas and moves mountains. The profound, sometimes painful, spiritual insight is this: our attempts to help God fulfill His promises often become the biggest hindrances to His perfect, beautiful, and often paradoxical plan. We complicate what He intended to make straight. We create friction where He intended peace. True faith isn't about trying to make God act. It's about trusting that He is always acting, even when the stage is dark and the outcome hidden. It's about trusting He is fully capable, fully sovereign, and fully committed to fulfilling His word without our anxious intervention. Proverbs 3:5-6 stands as a timeless lamp in this season of temptation. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make straight your paths. It's an invitation to surrender the blueprint you've drawn up, the timeline you've calculated, the help you think God needs. Release your white-knuckled grip on the situation. Trust that God's way, even when it feels like the longest, most winding path through the wilderness, is the truest path to His best for you. Let God be God. Let Him breathe His reality into your waiting, and watch Him paint a picture far grander than anything you could help Him create. You hold it so tightly, don't you? This weight of worry, this desperate grip on how things must turn out. This timeline you've etched in stone for God Himself. It's heavy. It exhausts you, pressing down on your chest until breath feels thin and prayer feels weak. You tell yourself you're being proactive, staying vigilant, maybe even helping God along, because surely, He could use a little nudge from your planning, your striving, your relentless effort to control the narrative. But look at your hands. They are clenched, white-knuckled around the burden, around the outcome, around the very thing you long for peace about. The opposite of this wrestling, this striving against the current, is not giving up in defeat. It is surrender. It is opening those tired hands, not in resignation, but in radical trust. Surrender isn't saying, "I quit, I'm beaten." It's saying, "God, I release this to you. My limited vision, my fearful grip, my urgent timeline, it is all in your hands now. You are sovereign. You are good. You know what is best." Imagine that heavy object, the worry or the desired outcome you're clutching. Surrender is simply loosening your fingers, letting gravity take hold, and trusting that as it falls, it lands safely in the palm of the Almighty. This isn't just a nice idea. It's the very heart of faith lived out. It's what the Son of God Himself modeled in the Garden of Gethsemane. Facing agony beyond comprehension, the weight of the world's sin, He didn't cling to His own preference, His own desire for the cup to pass. His prayer, the ultimate act of surrendered waiting, was profound in its simplicity. "Not my will, but yours be done." Luke 22:42. He released the how and the when of salvation into the perfect plan of the Father, resting in the who, the one whose love was the only anchor strong enough. The profound spiritual insight rests here. Peace is not found in getting exactly what you want, exactly when you want it. Peace settles, deep and true, when you trust the one who holds your entire life in His hands. When you truly surrender the outcome and the timing, when you stop fighting against the flow of His wisdom, a peace that surpasses understanding takes root in your soul. It doesn't mean you stop praying or hoping. It means you pray and hope with open hands, ready to receive whatever He gives, whenever He gives it, fully convinced that His plan, even if it looks different than yours, is always leading you toward ultimate good. The paradox is gentle yet powerful. You gain control over anxiety by giving up the illusion of control over the situation. What burdensome thing are you still gripping today? What outcome are you fighting to orchestrate yourself? Release it. Open your hands to God and invite His peace into the space your striving used to occupy. It is in this surrender that true rest, true faith begins. You sit amidst the rubble of your patience. The promise feels like dust on your tongue, a forgotten blueprint tucked away in a divine filing cabinet. You've waited, you've prayed, you've hoped, until hope felt like a fragile bird with broken wings. The days bleed into weeks, the weeks into months, perhaps even years. Your story feels stuck, an unfinished symphony halted mid-melody, a building standing half-erected, exposed to the elements. It's easy in this long pause, this quiet wilderness, to believe your narrative has been abandoned, that the good work God started in you, through you, has simply stalled, left incomplete, a project too difficult or perhaps too insignificant for the Creator of galaxies. But the bedrock truth of Scripture stands firm against the shifting sands of your doubt. It whispers a promise that anchors the restless soul. God is the finisher. He is not the author of unfinished projects. He does not plant a seed of promise in your heart, tend it through seasons of drought, and then walk away when the harvest is near. Philippians 1:6 declares this unwavering certainty. And I am sure of this, that he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion at the day of Jesus Christ. This isn't a vague hope. It is a sure conviction. The same mighty hand that began the work is the hand committed to completing it. This profound promise covers the divine sculpting happening within your very being, the refining of character, the deepening of faith, the chipping away of fear and doubt, replacing it with His likeness. But it also applies to the divine architecture being built through your circumstances, the unfolding of His plan for your life, the bringing to pass of promises aligned with His will and purpose. If He has planted a vision, a call, a divine desire in your heart, one that resonates with His truth and kingdom, He is faithful to bring it to fruition. He has already invested His very Spirit in you. He has initiated the plan according to His perfect timing and wisdom, and He is resolutely committed to seeing it through, step by meticulous step, until the very end. There are no forgotten children in God's kingdom, no unfinished masterpieces gathering dust in His divine studio. Your waiting season is not a sign of His forgetfulness, nor is it evidence of His disinterest. Often, it is the most critical phase of His completion process. Consider the builder again. The framing stage looks far from finished, yet it is absolutely essential for the structure to stand strong against future storms. The delicate details, the electrical wiring, the plumbing, these hidden, often time-consuming steps are not abandonment. They are meticulous, necessary parts of the blueprint coming alive. You are in a construction phase, perhaps a critical part that requires hidden work, strengthening foundations, or installing unseen systems. The finisher is at work, meticulously following His perfect blueprints for your life. Your role is not to rush the process or despair at the apparent lack of progress, but to fix your gaze, your hope, your weary heart on the absolute faithfulness of the one who started it all. The God who ignited that spark, who whispered that promise, who began the good work in you and for you, is the same God who promises, with divine certainty, to bring it to glorious completion. Rest, dear one, in the unwavering certainty of His commitment. The air feels thick with waiting. You scan the horizon of your life, searching for any sign of movement, any shift in the circumstances that hold you captive. The silence where you expected an answer is loud, a roaring absence that presses in on your spirit. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and the landscape of your situation remains stubbornly unchanged. This is where doubt breeds, whispering that maybe your faith was misplaced, that your hope was just a fragile, unfounded wish. It's easy, in this dry and weary land, to feel your hope dwindle like a lamp running low on oil. Where, then, do you find hope that doesn't depend on what you can see or feel? Hope that isn't just forced optimism or fragile wishful thinking. True hope, the kind that anchors the soul through the fiercest storms and the longest nights, is not rooted in the shifting sands of your situation, but in the bedrock of God's unchanging character. When the world feels unstable, when your own heart wavers, you can stand firm because He is faithful. He keeps His word, not because of your merit, but because of who He is. Hebrews 10:23. When circumstances scream despair, His goodness is a quiet, persistent truth. Psalm 119:68. Working even the most painful moments for ultimate good, though the path may be hidden from your eyes. When chaos threatens to overwhelm, remembering His sovereignty brings a strange, counterintuitive peace. He sits on the throne, holding all things in His hand. Psalm 115:3. His love isn't a fleeting emotion. It is His very essence. 1 John 4:8. A constant, unwavering current beneath the surface of life. His wisdom is infinite, far beyond your finite understanding. Romans 16:27. Weaving a tapestry you can only see in part. He cannot lie. Titus 1:2. His nature is truth itself, making His promises ironclad certain. This is the spiritual insight that can transform your perspective, shifting your focus from the problem, the waiting, the lack, the silence, to the nature of God. It's not about denying the pain of the wait. It's about elevating the truth of God's character above your temporary feelings or circumstances. Even if the specific answer you desire never manifests exactly as you pictured, your hope is secure because it is anchored in a God who is eternally good and always, always working for your ultimate good, according to His perfect, loving plan. His promises are not maybe, they are yes and amen in Christ. 2 Corinthians 1:20. So when doubt whispers its poison, declare His character. When fear arises, remember His faithfulness. When the wait feels endless, cling to the truth of His goodness and wisdom. Your hope isn't in the end of the wait, not in the desired outcome finally appearing, but in the God during the wait. He is with you in the silence, working in the stillness, preparing something you cannot yet perceive. Find your rest not in a resolved situation, but in the unchanging One who holds you through it all. Let your hope be rooted, deep and strong, not in the barren landscape you see, but in the fertile, eternal truth of who He is. This is the anchor that will hold. And so, the journey brings us here, to this quiet harbor, after navigating the swells of asking, the winds of waiting, the deep waters of wondering if the shore would ever appear. We land not upon a bustling dock of arrival, but perhaps upon the simple, solid ground of rest. Not the kind of rest that signals the end of movement, but a profound, soul-deep stillness that arises within the waiting itself. It is the rest of truly believing, not just intellectually knowing, that God's timing isn't merely good. It is perfectly calibrated to the rhythm of your unfolding story. You have wrestled with the calendar, checked the clock against your own desperate timeline, felt the gnawing anxiety of outcomes beyond your grasp. But there is an invitation now, whispered on the quiet current of His grace, to exhale, truly exhale, to lay down the heavy burden of needing to figure it all out, to cease the exhausting striving in your own limited strength. The Scripture anchors us in this truth, echoing through the ages. Be still before the Lord, and wait patiently for Him. Psalm 37:7. Be still. Not just physically still, but a soul stilled by surrender. A spirit settled by the certainty that even in the hushed moments where nothing seems to change, He is working. The waiting hasn't been a void intended to break you, but a crucible designed to refine. The silence hasn't been a sign of His absence, but often the quiet hum of God's unseen machinery, shaping circumstances and sculpting your character in ways you couldn't have imagined. The delay hasn't been a cruel denial. It has been divine preparation, positioning you for a future you are not yet ready for, but He is already orchestrating. Think of the seed buried in the dark earth. The waiting is its crucial unseen season of growth, strengthening the roots before the shoot ever breaks the surface. There is a profound goodness in the waiting itself, a hidden grace available to those who have eyes to see beyond the immediate ache. Lamentations 3:25-26 reminds us, "The Lord is good to those who wait for Him, to the soul who seeks Him. It is good that one should wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord." Goodness found in the waiting, but deeper intimacy with the God who sits with you in the quiet. A character forged strong and resilient, capable of carrying the weight of answered prayer when it arrives. A capacity for joy so much richer, because you learned its value in the barren places. So breathe deeply now. Feel the tension begin to melt from your shoulders. Look out that window, not with the heavy dread of continued uncertainty, but with the quiet expectation of a heart held securely. You are not abandoned in this space. You are not forgotten by the God who sees every single root He is building within you, every fiber of character He is forging, every intricate detail of the future He is preparing. He is right here. His presence is not contingent on your breakthrough arriving, but is singing over you, even now, especially now, in the quiet space of waiting. You can rest now. Lay the burdens down. Trust the author, even when you cannot yet see the final chapter. They didn't see the end, but they trusted the author, and that was enough.